All right, Alexander, let's talk a little bit about, actually, probably a lot about Steve Bannon and what he has said to Revolver News. He gave a recent interview to Revolver News, and there's a really interesting bit there, and I'll read that out to you in a second. And that's how we'll start it off from, I think the line that's getting the most coverage from Steve Bannon, the statement that he made from the interview with Revolver News. Let's also talk about. I don't know what would this be? Russiagate 4, 5, 6? I don't even know now. I mean, so now this is all Russian disinformation. This whole Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and we got all the cast of characters is back. Adam Schiff, we got Clapper, we got Brennan. They're all back. They're all back for episode 4, I think.
I think you're about. I think you got it about right. I think it's episode 4.
Russia did it episode 4, so they're all back again, and no one's really addressing the laptop, the information on it, the emails, the authenticity of it all. None of that. It's just about demonizing. I think it's safe to say demonizing Giuliani at this point.
Yes.
So as the Democrats and the neoliberals often do, they never focus on the facts and the information. They just look to attack the person. And in this case, they're attacking Giuliani. And my hunch is that Giuliani probably relishes in all of this. I think he's probably enjoying this, and he was probably expecting this, but it doesn't take away from the facts that we've laid out in previous videos and the facts that we'll probably go over again. So let me read you the key phrase. Let's start with Bannon. Let me read you the key phrase from the Bannon interview with Revolver News, which is making the rounds, and a lot of people are talking about it, and we can start from there. So it was a really good interview, actually, and I'll put a link for this article in the description box. But the key exchange was this. This is from Revolver News. Is there any reason to expect that the contents of the hard drive will be revealed before the election? If yes, will people actually care enough for it to substantially affect the outcome? Bannon's reply: the Bidens are about to be hit with multiple stories from multiple media sources based off evidence beyond the hard drive. Fox and Peter Schweizer have already started, but bigger, more mainstream companies are going to weigh in. We already have set in motion the various apparatuses that will release everything. Alexander comes from the school of Andrew Breitbart. Andrew Breitbart always when dealing with the media, he took the philosophy and the policy of don't release everything, release a little, let the media dig a hole and hang themselves, and then release the truth after they've already hung themselves. I think this is exactly what Bannon is doing. He's letting them dig a deeper and deeper hole, and it's connected to this whole Russia did it thing, and they're just digging and digging, and I think soon we are going to get the bomb from Steve Bannon and everybody else. Schweizer, Fox News, he said apparatuses. So what do you think?
And I've heard a report. When I say I've heard a report, I've had information, which I'm not going to disclose from where, by the way, that the Wall Street Journal is looking into all of this and is preparing something. So that may be one of the sources that Bannon is talking about. I am sure, from what I understand, and we're talking now about people who've seen this laptop. I mean, I'm talking about open sources, but people who've seen this laptop. There is a mine of information on this laptop, and having that mine of information in the laptop enables you to go and talk to other sources and to follow up with other clues and seek information elsewhere, which not only corroborates what's in the laptop itself, which is important, but also discloses other things which the laptop itself may not contain. So this has the possibility to snowball. And I completely agree. That is exactly what Bannon is doing. He is publishing it one dribble at a time until, as I said, the whole thing gains momentum. And of course, in the meantime, the other thing it does is it rattles the Biden campaign, who must now be wondering, where's the next attack going to come from? And they're probably frantically at this moment in time phoning up all the big media organizations and companies and institutions and trying to find out, where's the next one? What is it? How can we get ahead of this story? What can we say in advance that will counter it? Bearing in mind that the Biden campaign has hardly said anything up to now. I mean, they've been faced with this information, and they've not really come up with a coherent response to it. All they can try and do is to close it down. And of course, we'll come to the Russiagate side of it all in a moment, because that's the other tactic, to blame the Russians for it. Incidentally, can I just quickly also say there was another line. That is a brilliant interview by Bannon, by the way. I understand that for some people, Bannon is a controversial figure, but of his brilliance, of that, it's indisputable. In this kind of field, he is a master. And he made one line in it, which for me, it's almost his first one, which for me is the single most important. He said that, this exposes Joe Biden as a liar, as all kinds of things of that kind. But it also says that it also exposes him as compromised from a national security point of view. Now, go back to the original Russiagate 1. If you remember, there was all that talk about the Steele dossier, and there was all the claims that were made about, Donald Trump having been involved with in sort of orgies in Moscow hotels, and Russia having film of it, and all of that. And the amount of play that was made on this, that, the Russians have compromising material on Donald Trump, and that this, they can blackmail him, they can extort him, they have, and then there were stories that, Trump owed money to the Russians. None of that was true. None of that was true. The stories about, the Moscow hotel business and the Steele dossier was completely made up. The stories about the financing were completely made up. But hold on to the fact that the Democrats were saying, on the strength of these stories, that the Russians can blackmail Donald Trump. This information about Hunter Biden, and it seems Joe Biden also, well, it looks to be true. It's all apparently there in films, in articles, in emails, in all kinds of material on this laptop, and it's been corroborated by multiple sources. Both Russia and China have this information. Much of this, not all of it probably, but a lot of it. Probably they have much more information that we don't know, and that no source in the US knows, and which we may never find out. Doesn't that give them far more leverage, far more ability to extort things from Joe Biden than was ever the case with Donald Trump, who was in fact entirely guiltless of these things? So when Steve Bannon says that electing Joe Biden is foolish because he is compromised in national security terms, not only is that factually true, which it is, but if you follow the logic the Democrats were following in Russiagate with Trump and with all the untrue allegations that were made about Trump, but if you follow that logic, then it is multiple times true of Joe Biden. So, that I think was an absolute killer of a point by Steve Bannon, and I think it's one which we need to understand, and understand very carefully, even if, which I find very difficult to assume. There's no legal consequences from some of this, and if the material is as we're told, then I can't believe that. I mean, there must be legal consequences. But even if not, he is compromised. He is compromised from a national security point of view. And for that reason alone, he should not be president.
Absolutely. I've been to Ukraine, and I'll just make this comment. You do not send a drug addicted, I guess I could say playboy type of guy. I mean, someone who enjoys his vices.
Yeah.
You don't send that type of person to Ukraine.
No,
you just don't do it. It's like sending a sugar addict into a candy store.
Exactly.
It was a big mistake to send someone like Hunter Biden and all his addictions. And from what we're seeing from the photos and the email exchanges, you don't send someone like that into Ukraine, because they are just going to they're going to tear him up. It's not the place you go when you're into this type of stuff. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've never actually been to Ukraine, but I've heard multiple people tell me this. I've heard people in Britain who have been to Ukraine tell me this. And like yourself, I know of episodes which have arisen, which have caused people great grief and great trouble. And by the way, most of them, all of them, none of them, in fact, did anything on the scale of what Hunter Biden apparently did. And can I quickly add, that caused them a lot of trouble. But if they wanted to be, if they were the kind of person that Hunter Biden appears to be, well, they would have done an awful lot more, because in those kind of places, in Ukraine today, in Russia in the 1990s, which I did visit, by the way, I mean, there is absolutely no limit. You can do anything if you are predisposed to do it. I mean, I remember that. I remember how disorienting and distressing to me personally that was when I was there in the 90s. And I know also the advantage that some people took of it.
Yeah, you have to be very careful going to countries like this, even as just a simple tourist.
Absolutely.
You have to be very careful.
You have to be,
have your head on like a swivel, looking left, right, making sure that you're not being taken advantage of. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely, and compromised in the most disastrous way. I mean, it's a dangerous thing even to go to a nightclub. Let me put it as straightforwardly as that, or a bar. I mean, you can find yourself in a very compromising situation there. But if you have certain proclivities, then, as I said, there is no limit to what you can do. There really isn't. And you can do with seeming impunity, but of course, you put yourself in danger because you are basically putting your life and your future in the hands of some very, very, very unsentimental and ruthless people.
Yeah, absolutely. And on your point, as far as Russia having everything, Russia has it all and more.
Absolutely.
So that we know that's definite. So he's absolutely compromised.
Absolutely.
But Biden cannot be president.
No, he can't be. The Russians have it all, and the Chinese, it seems, have probably as much. So he can't be president on that. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, actually. Yeah. It's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, it is. It's like we said in our last video, the fact that people want him to be president means that they don't care one bit about the national security of the United States. Going to Bannon, to finish it off on Bannon before we move to the Russia did it. Bannon is getting his revenge now. That's why he's going to drop the biggest of hammers on the Democrats. And I say this because I believe it was September. And I believe September is when he got wind of this laptop. And I believe it was in September where the New York prosecutor went after him for that Build the Wall charity. I think Bannon is just going to take his revenge, and it's going to be absolutely brutal. It's going to be a brutal revenge on the Democrats. And I think he hasn't forgotten that.
No, of course he hasn't forgotten it. I mean, bear in mind, these charges are still hanging over his head. So I completely understand why. By the way, I've changed my perspective on this. If you remember, we did a video and I was really very, very concerned. And I was wondering whether there might be something in this with Bannon. I've changed my views about that, and I want to say that sometimes one has to admit that one's made probably a mistake, and I think I probably made a mistake there, because it seems to me that the timing, it's too strong to be just a coincidence. But there is also something else, and that is something that we talked about recently in another program we recently did, which is the revelation of the extent to which Russiagate was intentionally fabricated, not just by the Democrats, but by people within the national security bureaucracy. People like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page planting stories in the media, which they would then recycle as evidence in the continuing investigation. I mean, all of that going on, that they actually weaved the Russiagate narrative themselves. In fact, I mean, what happened was a whole group of people fabricated the whole allegation in a way which makes it very difficult for me to believe, and I no longer believe it, that they at any time seriously thought that there was collusion between Trump and Russia. Well, if they're able to fabricate a case against Donald Trump and his campaign in that way, well, they're certainly capable of fabricating again a case against Steve Bannon. And I'm starting to think that that's what's happened.
All right. So this is how I think it all went down with the Biden scandal and how they pivoted to Russia. I think that when this scandal broke, when the NY Post broke this scandal and it hit the interwebs, I know, and I'm not going to name the names. Everyone knows the names of these people anyway. They're all over the web. The Democrats, they called the people that are or that were working for Bidens and Obamas and the Clintons, who are now working at Twitter and Facebook and Google and YouTube. So they called these people that they have on the inside. They told them to suppress the New York Post story. They did it. At the same time, they called people in mainstream media to start writing up the articles, which would say, you see, Twitter suppressed the New York Post article, so it's false. So then they would base their article on Twitter. Then Twitter would take that article from the mainstream media, like say from the New York Times, and amplify it. So they would amplify the New York Times article while suppressing the New York Post and say, you see, this is all false. This is not what happened. This is fake news. This is Russian disinformation. So it was kind of that circular confirmation that they were giving to each other. So that's how they played this. The piece that they added into it, because I think they were low on time, I think they just didn't have enough time to react, is they couldn't think of another country or another, bad guy. So they said, Giuliani, Russia. Okay, let's just go back to Russia. And that's how they constructed this. And we have the names of the people that were working for Obamas and for Clintons and for Bidens who are now working at the big tech. We have their names at the big tech companies. So we know how this thing went down and how they played the circular confirmation thing that they always do.
Absolutely. That's exactly what's happened, I think. I think that's exactly what's happened. If you follow these articles closely, as we both have, you will find the way in which it's a media echo chamber. Each media outlet, says the same thing, and then they start quoting and referencing each other to corroborate what they've said. And it's the classic way of fostering an appearance that there is some, critical mass of information behind what they're saying, when in fact they are themselves creating it. It's very strange. I mean, it doesn't actually take a lot of reading or a lot of attention to see the extent to which that is so. But that's exactly what's happened. And as you absolutely rightly say, when you struggle to come up with an explanation for what's happened, well, what do, you reach for your standard one, which is Russia. And in fact, we've now had Politico publishing this extraordinary letter by 50 ex-US intelligence, chiefs and officials. And by the way, the three people who are the first signatories, James Clapper is number one, Michael Hayden, ex-CIA chief, he's number two, and John Brennan, ex-CIA chief, is number 3, and then there's the 47 others. But and one wonders which of them actually was responsible. But anyway, you now see they come forward and they say, we've got absolutely no evidence that Russia is involved, but this bears all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign, which of course is pure supposition, pure theory, pure fantasy. And as we've just discussed in another program we've done, in fact, we have all the evidence about the provenance of this material, at least the laptop material. We know that the allegation of Russian involvement in this is evidentless, it is factually wrong, and it is a cover story. Again, it is nothing else. There is no evidence of Russian involvement. In fact, we know exactly what the provenance of this laptop is. We know that it came from Hunter Biden himself. Note he has not contradicted that fact. Note that the Biden campaign has not contradicted that fact. Note that the head of US intelligence, DNI Radcliffe, Director of National Intelligence, has said it is not a Russian disinformation campaign. And yet we see people going on and insisting that it is a Russian disinformation campaign. I mean, it is so strange. It's this thing has now become it's become weightless. It's detached entirely. It detached itself entirely from reality. And I said previously that I'd wondered at one time whether some people thought there might be some truth in Russiagate, and whether the original investigators into the Russiagate thing might have been fooled by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats into thinking that something was going on. And I've decided that it can't be. Well, this time, I think we can say for certain they must know that there is no connection to Russia in this matter, because all the facts are there. We know how Hunter Biden came along and gave the laptops to this computer repairman in Delaware, Mr. Scott or something like this. I haven't got his name, but apparently he's even given interviews. So we know about that. He's got his signature, his signatures on his receipts. His lawyer contacted and tried to get the laptop back. There's absolutely no doubt about it. There is nothing here that links Russia to this affair at all.
Yeah, you've got this Cooney guy now working with Schweitzer. You've got Fox News on it. No one has denied the important part, which is the actual emails and the photographs and everything that's contained in this laptop.
Yeah,
and for it to have been a Russian disinformation campaign would have had to have been the most complicated, sophisticated Russian campaign ever in history. I don't even think a movie script could have written something like this, because I mean, none of the pieces fit whatsoever into this being Russian, Chinese, and anything. I mean, this was some guy high on drugs who messed up his notebook and didn't think twice about all the information that was on it. It is that simple.
Absolutely.
It's that simple.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
And the fact, and just real quick, the fact that I see Clapper and Brennan, all these guys on this document with their signatures, that means that this story is 100% true.
That's right. I agree. Well, the strange thing is, if you read this document, they almost admit it as much. They even say in it that they're not saying whether they can't comment on whether the emails themselves might be true or false. I mean,
that's the important part, though.
That's the important part, exactly. I mean, so the only reason for not considering them is because they have certain speculations, which, as I said, I don't really believe they have those speculations, but they have certain speculations about the provenance of these laptops. I mean, what exactly does Joe and Hunter Biden have to do, to be caught doing before you start worrying about things like that and start considering what they've actually been caught doing? Because that should be, in fairness, the really serious thing. That's not in any way a concession, by the way. I'm not in any way conceding that the Russians might have been involved. They were not involved. I say it again. It's a complete red herring. It's a story. It's a fantasy woven up in order to try and justify keeping this thing out of the news.
Yeah, they were just caught. So they were caught by such a surprise with this thing coming out that they had no time to really prepare for a proper the proper enemy to put into this this story. So in order to protect Joe Biden, so they just went back to Russia. And the social media companies, by banning the New York Post article, they bought them, say, a day's worth of time so that they can somehow put together this Russia thing. So that leads me into my final question. They are demonizing Giuliani as well because of Giuliani's investigations when he went to Ukraine, and he was giving interviews with, I believe his name was Derkach.
Yes.
And they're saying that, Giuliani was actually the one being set up by the Russians. Doesn't make any sense either. We also have from President Trump, very, very quickly, he sounded off, and President Trump told Fox and Friends that Representative Adam Schiff ought to be put away or something should happen with him. Adam Schiff should be investigated for what he does. Yeah, Adam Schiff was on CNN flat out lying about everything, saying it's the Kremlin. The Kremlin, of course, he never disputed the emails or the contents of that laptop. And President Trump also said this to Fox and Friends. He said, this was like Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein when Hillary Clinton said it about them, that they were agents of Russia. Trump noted by adding, they were not agents of Russia. They never spoke to anybody from Russia. I'm taking this from Russian state media channel RT so that people know that I'm taking it from the state media propaganda apparatus known as RT. So, Alexander, what do you make of what Trump said, which is good, but more to the point, Giuliani, demonizing Giuliani, staying away from the facts, once again, of what's on the laptop and attacking the person.
I mean, absolutely. That's exactly it. I mean, they stay away from the facts. They attack the person. Some people in the US have some sort of complex about Giuliani. I don't understand why, by the way. I mean, I remember him when he was mayor of New York, and I thought he was a very effective mayor of New York. I appreciate that some of the things he did were controversial then, but there we are. And he is an extremely able attorney, and was a brilliant federal prosecutor. I mean, that's a fact about him that people repeatedly overlook. He was a very brilliant prosecutor, not the kind of person who is easy to manipulate by Russian intelligence or by any kind of intelligence, and somebody who understands evidence and understands about corroboration. He's not the kind of person who's going to be fooled by some, likely character who comes on and spins a story and, tells him things that turn out to be, invented. And two further things to say. Firstly, if we go back to Giuliani and the various allegations he's made lots of claims, lots of allegations. I do not know yet of a single one that has been proved conclusively to be untrue. In fact, the corroboration for everything that he is saying is gradually coming. I mean, so let's remember that this is not a Russian intelligence operation. It is an attorney who has, dug out some material for his client, and that evidence which corroborates that material is now appearing. That's the real story. The other thing is, I seem to vaguely remember that Giuliani himself was supposed to be under investigation. Whatever happened to that? If you remember, there was all that story that he was being investigated himself for his Russian connections. Nothing ever came of it. Again, because it isn't true. And as for Derkach, Mr. Derkach, about whom I know absolutely nothing other than that he was a source of information for Giuliani, I noticed that the Treasury Department about a month ago sanctioned him, presumably because he provided some evidence to Giuliani. I mean, they're not just out to discredit Giuliani; they're out to punish Giuliani's sources too.
Yeah, like we've said many times, they're in it to win it. They're going to do whatever it takes
Absolutely.
to get
Absolutely.
Biden over the finish line so they can then dispose of Biden and put Kamala Harris as president. That is the
Absolutely.
plan.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. That is exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. But, we will point out that, and I think that more and more information is coming. And I think, by the way, I'm going to say this, I think this thing was, this is where Bannon may be really rather clever and understands how these things work. After all, he's worked in this field. It may very well be that he anticipated that there would be some sort of the reaction that we saw last week. So he starts with some small bits of information. We get the social media clampdown, then the reaction to that swings in, which makes further clampdowns more and more difficult as the really big revelations start to appear. So it may very well be that he's played this even more skillfully than we as yet know.
Absolutely. I think Bannon is just setting them up.
Yes.
And it's going to be big. It's going to be big. It's going to be fun to watch. And we'll be watching it.
And we'll be watching it and reporting it and having some, and we know it's very, very hard work what we do, and in some ways very distressing to read all of this, because of course it relates to the United States and to the basically what is being the attack that is being waged against the US Constitution and the US political system and US democracy. As Alex correctly said in another program that we did, all this banning is in effect an attack on the Constitution. It is, but it is also I'm not going to deny it. I mean, I there is a side of me that is quite amused going through all of this and seeing all these extraordinary contortions that these people resort to in order to deny what is the blindingly obvious truth.
Yeah, it doesn't get more obvious. Once again, we have it on video where Biden says exactly what he did with Shokin. It's, you can't fool my eyes. I've seen it. I've heard it.
Well, if
that isn't damning enough, that video.
Yeah.
This is why you ended up here.
Well,
Obama should have taken action the minute he saw that video. If he was a proper manager and a proper chief executive, the minute you see a video like that, you pull that guy into your office, and I don't care if it's a company of 3 people or a company of 50,000 or a country like the United States. You pull that person in and you say, you're out.
Exactly right. That is exactly right. But can I just say, Alex, you made an incredibly important point, and it's one that all our viewers need to take away with. Believe the evidence of your eyes. Don't waste your time with the nonsense they tell you. Just follow. Just see what your eyes are telling you, because it's all there. It's not actually this one. I mean, Russiagate was very complicated and very difficult because there was this maze of material that we had to painstakingly work our way through. This one is very straightforward.
Yeah, it's a slam dunk. All right, we'll leave it there. And yes, it was a very difficult week. We even got our warnings as well, but we're still reporting. So guys, of course, subscribe to us here on YouTube, but please go to BitChute, please go to ODYSEE and subscribe to our channel there, and also support us at the Duran shop, and also please support us on PayPal, but more importantly, also on Patreon and Subscribestar. We are going to be putting out a lot of exclusive stuff, discounts, exclusive content, free ebooks. So please join us on Patreon and Subscribestar as well to help out this channel, and go to our Discord server to always stay in touch, because they really came down hard on us as well this week, the big tech. So.
Absolutely. And they did it because, we care about the country whose flag is on this magic mug of the Duran, the best mugs in the world, and the flag of the great republic, of the United States, which we feel very strongly about, and whose integrity, the integrity of its constitution and of its political system, we're trying to defend. That's what we're trying to do. And of course, you can find the flags of many other countries on our products, our amazing shirts, our hats. I'm British and I live in Britain, as you both know. And there's the British flag on my hat, and there's the British flag on my shirt. And Alex is showing you the British flag on his mug, but we've got flags of many other countries. I've probably got mine too somewhere. Let me see. Here it is. There's Britain. There's Britain also. And also for people in England, because I will live in England, of course, in London, you can see that I've also got England also. But lots of flags of many countries. You will find them all on our products. And the feedback we get from our viewers about our products is stellar. And so you'll be really, really happy when you've got whatever you buy from us. And at the same time, you're supporting this channel, which is bravely fighting the good fight.
All right. You will find all those links in the description box down below. Alexander Beck-Hurst, thank you very much. Till next time, everybody, take care.